we've just had a huge leak. We now know the design that will be coming in this phone, a change on the back at least, and we now know the specs as well coming in this phone. So yeah, not a new design on the front really. It is the same old, what we're seeing in pretty much every Android phone now. No bad thing for me. You have that cutout selfie camera in the top left, so that's just like the OnePlus 8, OnePlus 8 Pro. Coming to the back, here is the big change though. We have a Samsung camera bump. Yeah, well, I guess not quite Samsung. Huawei, Honor, Samsung, and pretty much every other Android brand is using this camera bump right now. And I'm not even sure if Samsung were the first to use this, but certainly were one of. Anyway, this is it, the enlarged camera bump holding a quad camera system. Other than that, it is typical for OnePlus. So you have the power button on the right hand side, volume rockers on the left hand side, and then you have the alert slider. They are sticking with that. Really great hardware feature. I love that OnePlus sticks with that alert slider. I think it's really unique for OnePlus. It's definitely a OnePlus thing. Happy that they're sticking with it. USB-C on the bottom, you get a bottom firing speaker down there. You're also going to have that stereo speaker, the earpiece up there doubling up as a stereo speaker. So definitely very good for that one. Now, when it comes to the chipset being used, we'd heard that it was the Snapdragon 865 Plus, which just would be par for the course for OnePlus. They always use the very best processor, especially in their flagship phones, and the T versions of their phones usually get the Plus version if it is available. It was last year. They did use it in the Pro versions. And well, according to this leak from OnLeaks anyway, this will be the Snapdragon 865, so not the Plus version. A couple of other reports saying it will be the Plus, so I guess this one's maybe up in the air still a little bit. I would assume the Plus because that's just what OnePlus do, but hey, maybe they think this year they want to keep the price a bit lower, maybe not using the Plus, maybe a beneficial thing for them and us in terms of the price of this phone. So this one's up in the air, but it's either the 865 or the 865 Plus. When it comes to the screen, totally flat, no curves whatsoever. This confirms it. We knew that already, but great to see it confirmed. Also, 120 Hz confirmed in this leak by OnLeaks, so very good. A lot of people like this. 120 Hz OLED flat display, a lot to like with that. I would say that the curved screen on the OnePlus 8 Pro is just stunning. Probably my favorite screen that I've ever used with a curve. Not massive fan of curves, but the Find X2 Pro, OnePlus 8 Pro with that same screen, absolutely stunning. I'm not going to bash a flat screen with 120 Hz though. Also really good and glad it's on here. A side note to this, looking at these renders, it looks like that bottom bezel is just a little bit larger than the top bezel, not quite symmetrical. It's really hard to tell with renders because they are going to be different to the final product in terms of the dimensions and the way it looks, but OnePlus may be using a rigid OLED screen here. Rigid OLEDs are cheaper than flexible OLEDs. Flexible OLEDs can be bent around to produce a smaller bottom bezel. Rigid OLEDs can't, so the bottom bezel is a little bit bigger. The Pixel 5 will be using a rigid OLED to keep the cost down. OnePlus may be doing that here. As I said, these renders may just look a little off, so almost impossible to confirm that before we actually get the hardware, but could be something that OnePlus are doing. The battery charging specs are really, really interesting because if you're a OnePlus fan or you've seen my OnePlus videos before, you'll know ages ago we covered a registration of a 65 watt charging brick under the OnePlus brand. And you know OnePlus, basically BBK, Oppo, they have 65 watt charging. Oppo have now moved on to 125 watt, leaving the way for OnePlus to use 65 watt. We got that registration a long time ago, a 65 watt charging brick. What product was it going to be used with? Well, now we have our answer pretty much for sure. The OnePlus 8T with 65 watt charging. A great spec and also a better spec than even the OnePlus 8 Pro. So funny how they've done it, but yeah, a good selling point for this phone. 65 watts with apparently a 4,500 milliamp hour battery. So I think they're good charging specs overall. 65 is definitely up there. Going to be replaced soon by Oppo, even Realme with like 100 watt. But yeah, 65 watt, still good enough. Then coming to the cameras, that new camera array, a triple camera system on the left. Then the top right of that camera bump, you have a flash. Bottom right, you have another camera. And we know two of these cameras are going to be a macro and a depth sensor. So yeah, okay, not a pro version phone. And then the main camera, 48 megapixels, ultra wide, 16 megapixels. Would I have loved to have seen a periscope zoom in here? Yes, but I think this phone, the OnePlus 8T, isn't really going for that ultra top end spec, just like the OnePlus 8 Pro did or the Oppo Find X2 Pro did. It's going for just a little bit under that, keeping the price a little bit lower, but offering more of what we like, which is that screen, great charging specs. So yeah, not a blockbuster camera setup, but I think good enough if they're using that brand new IMX689 image sensor under there as the main camera lens. I think it's decent. Definitely not going head to head with the very, very, very best in the camera specs department, but I think good enough overall, especially for what this phone is supposed to be, which is concentrating on bringing the price a little bit more affordable. Our next feature is that there is no Pro version. Well, there might be or there might not be. There's been confusion here. So way back in the spring, we heard from a product executive at OnePlus on his social media in China, on his Weibo. He answered someone asking about the OnePlus 8T Pro, and he said that just wasn't coming this year. That phone isn't here. And then as time has gone on, there's been nothing about it. A lot of other leaks confirming that. Then recently, Evan Blash on Twitter finding a OnePlus 8T Pro product page that could point to it coming. Other leakers then coming out saying they can't find any references to it, so it's not coming. Pretty confusing, yes, but I think overall the OnePlus 8T Pro doesn't really have much evidence that it's here except for that one product page. That could be a mistake. Overall, it doesn't look like it's coming, but I guess we can hold out hope for something really high end, but it doesn't look like that's what OnePlus are doing particularly this year, so we have to assume that it's not coming. Then that crazy spec, 8K 960 frames a second that XDA found. They found some references to it in some Oxygen OS 11 code. And this is just insane. It's crazy. I have no idea how OnePlus are actually going to do this. Pretty sure that the Snapdragon 865 or 865 Plus just cannot do this. It's impossible. But I'm interested to see how OnePlus try and figure this out. Our next feature is nothing to do with the OnePlus 8T, but is really exciting if you are a OnePlus fan, the OnePlus Watch. This was leaked by Max J on Twitter, a cryptic message misspelling the word watch with an O, which was to signify a round design for the watch. And we can look to Vivo, which is a brother, sister, cousin company, whatever you want to call it, launching their new watch, the Vivo watch with a round design. And the OnePlus Watch is not going to be exactly the same thing, but it looks that it might be a similar design overall. So a OnePlus smartwatch, and we've seen Oppo launch their smartwatch as well. So we could expect more or less the same features and maybe internal hardware. So that would mean heart rate monitoring, cellular performance, so you can use it with an eSIM. So you should be able to sign up to network connectivity without actually inserting any SIM cards into the watch. A round design as well, much like the Vivo watch. Other than that, not really much is known about this device, not many leaks on it, apart from the fact that looks like OnePlus are working on it, possibly launching alongside the OnePlus 8T, which would be great timing, although that still isn't confirmed as well. So exciting, a watch is coming from OnePlus. It looks like it's going to be round in design, possibly like the Vivo watch and possibly having some of the features of the Oppo watch. And then the last feature is the price, and this is going to be different depending on what country you're in. Tends to be cheaper in China and India, more expensive in the States and Europe. That's just the way it is. $700 for this phone, I would say, is top end. That's for the States. Europe is going to be different. India, China, it is going to be cheaper than that, as it always is. But yeah, I would not expect this phone to be more expensive than the OnePlus 8 because it just simply isn't using more expensive hardware. If we can believe all of these hardware leaks, which seem to be backed up time and time again, we can be pretty sure that this is how it's coming. Let me know all of your thoughts on the OnePlus 8T. Is it a better option than the OnePlus 8? Would you actually rather go for this one or the OnePlus 8? Also, are you excited for a OnePlus Watch? Let me know in the comments as always. That is it for this one though. Thank you for watching this time. Thumbs up if you liked it, and I'll see you in the next one.